Yeah, thanks, Chuck. So it has been a while with the Gokaden. As you might remember, we just wrapped up the Rise School with the last session, part 8. And today is going to be a little, kind of a little bridge, a shorter one, because today we're going to talk about the Ryokai school, which is very difficult to call it actually a school, because there was mainly 2 smiths and a very famous student, Nobukuni, who will be the large chapter coming after this. So let's jump right in. Ryokai. It's very interesting, before we start, that he was signing with a priest name, because it's not a regular smith name, like Kunimitsu, Kunitoshi, Yoshimitsu. It's a Ryokai is a priest's name. And I'm going to talk about all the traditions about how he came to this name, or how maybe not, in a second. But what does Ryokai actually mean? Because all these Buddhist names, they have meanings. So one interpretation is, which is the most common one, it means understanding the Buddhist precepts. This is one tradition. It's the most common take of this name. But there's also an interesting other take, because the Ryo character has different meanings. It can also mean to quit the Buddhist precepts, meaning like he's becoming a swordsmith. But it's just, a little fun play with words and interpretation. We do not know. I tend towards the former, because it would be very uncommon for a swordsmith at this time to have like these playful thoughts with his Buddhist name, like in the Kamakura period. So what is his scholastic background, Ryokai? Ryokai was, as you can see here, he was either a student or a son of Rai Kunitoshi. And it's very interesting because there is one tradition that has it that Ryokai was Kunitoshi's son when Kunitoshi was only 17 years old. So that would have been probably likely his first son. Had it very early on, and then he was 16 years old. He entered priesthood already under the name of Ryokai. So the young son of Rai Kunitoshi becoming a priest is one theory. Of course, there's another theory that he was a normal swordsmith who entered priesthood in his later years, as it would be more common for this time period. But I just wanted to give you all the traditions that are out there around his name. And as you can see here, we'll talk about Ryokai today and his son Ryo Hisanobu, and then Nobukuni will be the next chapter. So it's just a scholastic background where we are. Rai Kunitoshi, and we do have quite a good substantial body of work by Ryokai that's signed. So it did exist. There are a lot of Ryokai signed plates. And as you can see here, we have also dated works all the way from 1292 to 1309. So it's very end of Kamakura. So, but what always strikes me as very interesting is he was obviously, he had a priest name, so he was a priest. He got some training, but when you look at his signatures, the signatures actually, in my opinion, is more dissolved or more ugly than a regular swordsmith signed his sword. If you look at the date, it's not very in a calligraphic way. It's not very pretty. So I don't know why he, as a priest who had like formal training in calligraphy and understanding of characters, signed in such an odd way, such a clumsy way. And we're going to see some examples later on too. So that's one of a famous plate that's dated by him and signed that he was actually did reside in Yamashiro province. But more on this in a second. So let's do again, as we always do, let's do the numbers game to see where Ryokai is standing. He has like 90 chuyo, about 90 chuyo. He has only 4 tokubetsu chuyo and 9 blades with government designations like chuyo bichutsuhin, chuyo bunkasai, and kok. He does not have one kokuho anymore. One blade was briefly kokuho after World War II, the old system, and then it became chuyo bunkasai now. And it's actually pretty rare, Ryokai, outside of Japan. I don't know, does anyone have a Ryokai in their collection in here? I don't remember seeing any. So, and also, I will talk about later his son, Ryo Hisanobu, also very rare. I have not seen Ryo Hisanobu signed work myself so far, only Ryokai. So let's compare it to his father or teacher, Rai Kunitoshi. As you can see here, much higher numbers. But of course, Rai Kunitoshi was the head of a big workshop, and much more blades by his side exist. So I'm gonna talk about all this also in a second. But now let's jump in and introduce a few of his blades. And we start, as always, with the long swords, the tachi. And I want to focus on sign blades here, so you know what's typical and what's not speculation. So one of his most famous blades here is a Chuyo. It's completely ubu, and it's signed. It's a long nagasa, and it's never submitted for tokuchu, but it probably should pass tokuchu. And it's very much in the style of Rai Kunitoshi. You see like a Suguha-based hamon. There's a little bit of choji going on, and I have some slides later to talk about the differences between him and Rai Kunitoshi. It's always said that he was very close to Rai Kunitoshi, but I'm going to introduce some of the differences in a second. So there's another blade by this one is Tokubetsu Chuyo. It's also very classical hamon with small elements, very fine. It's also ubu and signed. And I'm going to show you the Sugata in the next slide, like here. It's very elegant, end of Kamakura. It's not the earlier Kamakura with the Ikubi Kisake and everything. It's not early Namokcho with a large Kisake, so it's very classical end of Kamakura shape. So, but apart from this Choji-like style, a little bit of flamboyance, he also did very classical blades, like this Chuyo here. Very narrow hamon, little activities going on. And what's interesting with this blade is here, if you look at the horimono of the suken at the base, there are actually a few blades of his that exist that have all the same horimono at the base, which can be considered a kante point. And like this blade here is also Chuyo. And the interesting thing is here, they are all of the same classical interpretation with a suguha and not that many activities going on and not many midare. Another one here, this one is also Chuyo, very classical with the same suken at the base. It's a little bit shortened, of course. And just to show you another blade of his, which is this one, which I'm going to demonstrate a few of the differences between him and Rai Kunitoshi. This is a Chuyo blade. This one is unsigned, so it's one exception, but I have some clearer pictures about the differences. Just to show you the Sugata of this blade. We have it out there, and I hope it's showing up good on the TV, but I want to point out, so one of the differences, they always say Rai Kunitoshi versus Ryokai is more Masame and Nagare with Ryokai. So I hope you can see it has some Nagare Masame here in the chi. There are some Ryokai blades that have Rai Hada, that has like no forging structure. And another characteristic of Ryokai, it's a tendency towards shirake. So you have white areas in the chi. And another kante point for Ryokai is that his Nyoeguchi is a little bit more subdued than Rai Kunitoshi. But sometimes it's very hard to tell. You know, there is some Nagare in Rai Kunitoshi, and sometimes it's very hard to, if you have an unsigned blade, to say if it's Ryokai or Rai Kunitoshi or early Rai Kunimitsu even. It's in the subtleties. If you have all characteristics together, if you have shirake, a subdued Nyoeguchi, and Nagare Masame, you might say, it's not a Rai Kunitoshi, it's rather a Ryokai. And then you have to, of course, other elements like the boshi that would tell you it's not an enju, because enju is also a possibility in this ballpark. But enju we're gonna come to the enju school much later on. So, and that's I always find interesting here, as you can see the Masame here, because there's one tradition has it that Ryokai was actually a Nara smith who came to Kyoto to study with Rai Kunitoshi. But my problem with this is, if he studied with Rai Kunitoshi, then he would have learned from Rai Kunitoshi how to make his swords. Because it's not like just because you are a Yamato smith, you're gonna accidentally, oh oopsie, I just made Masame again, because you have to, forging the bundle, it's not that you accidentally produce masame just because it's your habit as a Yamato smith. So that's my problem. But another way to explain this would be the situation of the raw materials back then, because Ryokai Nitoshi, like Bisen, Nagamitsu, there was a huge school, and the limited resources, the limited steel, so the very best steel was preserved for those made by the grandmaster and signed by his. And not that high quality steel would be distributed to his students, which would be a way to explain that they may have to forge sometimes in a different way that which produces masame, because they don't have the same raw materials to start with. So, but there is another strong point for his possible Yamato origins. We're going to show you in a second. Let's just show this one again here, which is his tanto. Let's go over to his tanto. This is one of his, probably his most famous work. It's a meibutsu. It's called the Akita Ryokai. It's a tanto. And as you can see, it's in Kanmuri Otoshi Tsukuri. And Kanmuri Otoshi Tsukuri, as some of you might know, is a very typical feature for Yamato. You can see here, Hosho, Taima, a lot of Yamato smiths worked in this style, which could be an indicator that he might have been a Yamato smith later, worked in Kyoto. But on the other hand, you also have Kanmuri Otoshi by Shintogo Kunemitsu. So it's not as easy. But there are quite many Kanmuri Otoshi plays of his in existence. This one, Chuyo Bichutsuhin, it's signed, same shape, same blade shape. And another one also signed, this one is Chuyo. So he did make quite a few blades in Kanmuri Otoshi Tsukuri. But he also made classical tanto shapes for this time period, like this Tokubetsu Chuyo. Very elegant blade with the curved tanto tang, very nice. And I'll show you the oshigata of this blade. Very nice suguha. Has some characteristics like at the start of the ha. You sometimes see with other smiths. But that was a classical tanto shape of this time period. And there's another tanto of his Chuyo, which is also a classical shape. And also, he did make some other blades too. He did not also only make tachi and tanto. He also made some rare shapes like this tachi in Shobutsukuri, which is relatively short for a tachi of this time. It's more like a Uchigadana style, but it's signed tachi side, and it's in Shobutsukuri, as you can see here. And he also did make some naginata, like this one here that was later shortened. So, but also, as I have said earlier, it's pretty rare to come across a Ryokai outside of Japan. So if you're for Kante and you have a blade that looks like Rai, you rather go for either Kunitoshi or even more for Enju than for Ryokai. Just as a, chances. And now we're going to come to his son, Ryo Hisanobu. And we know that he was his son not only from written records, but for actually blades signed that he was his son. Again, this is the genealogy. The recorded works of his we have here will place him about in the same, a little earlier than Ryokai Nimitsu. So this genealogy is not chronological, it's more like hierarchical. So this smith would actually be a little bit higher up here if you think about in chronological terms. So also here, let's do the numbers game again. Also, he only has 5 Chuyo blades. He has no Tokubetsu Chuyo, and he has only one government designation. So also even more rare than his father, Ryokai. But we have a few important blades that are important to understand, like his connection. Like this blade here. This one is Chuyo Bunkasai. It's a long blade, as you can see, 32.5 inches. And the interesting thing is, this one is signed like this. It's signed Ryokai, it's dated, and then on the other side it's cut off after this first name Kurosa. So everyone thought for a long time, people thought Kurosa is like a first name of Ryokai, so it was only like one one smith, he signed with his name, Ryokai name, and then with his first name on the other side. But then they actually discovered another plate, this plate which passed through you, as you can see here. And the signature is like this, and this one says actually the Kurosa Emonocho Hisanobu. So the plate before was actually a joint work between father and son. So Kurosa Emon was Hisanobu and Ryokai was his son, and this is also around the same date. And what's interesting here too, there's a very long plate, like 32 inches. There's this little cluster of very detailed signed plates that are long and that have like programs, not programs, but like scholastic and family information. It's an outlier, it's an oddity to have this cluster of plates in existence. And also here too, if you look at the signature here, it's barely legible. It's very crudely cut. It's very odd. It's not a clean cut like Rai Kunitoshi, Rai Kunimitsu, or Osafune Smith. That's why, you know, there's such an outlier, these two Smiths, Ryokai and his son Hisanobu. And if you compare like to the elegance Ryokai signature that we find on Tanto, the long swords are not signed in this most elegant way. And then we have this famous Naginata, which actually is signed that says Hisanobu, the son of Ryokai. That's why it's very important. This plate does not have any government designations. It probably would be Chuyo Bunkasai, but in the storage of the Tokyo National Museum it was never submitted. But it's a very important plate and to tell us. So he explicitly signed that he was the son of Ryokai. But he also made some regular tachi too, of course, Ryo Hisanobu, like this one here too. It's also very classical Yamashiro style. It's one of the 5 Chuyo plates that I've mentioned earlier. So pretty rare out there in the wild to see a signed Ryo Hisanobu. And Tanto, very few Tanto exist by his. This one is another one that's also in the Tokyo National Museum, signed and dated. Doesn't have any government designations, but it's a classical end of Kamakura shaped Tanto, as you can see here. And I'm gonna show you the Oshigata here. It's pretty much tending to Midare. It's a lot going on in the Hamon. And the problem is I tried to find some more classical Hisanobu Tanto that are signed, but I couldn't find any. There are some Ryo Hisanobu out there, Mumei, but attributed to him, but I didn't want to include those because it's too much speculation for this series, especially if it's only Hoson or Tokubetsu Hoson level in this way. So also interesting here, you have a Mizukage, but everyone says the blade is not retempered. It has the original hardening. And this one is also in the Tokyo National Museum, doesn't have any designations or Chuyo, Tokushu or anything like this. So this was like the quick rundown for today. There was like the missing gap between the last Rai chapter and the next time, and we're going to start with the big chapter of the Nobukuni school, which is going to have many parts. So with this, I'm going to open it up for any questions if you have.
Who's the Ikai? I thought the source sign is Ikai.
Oh, Ikai? They don't know. Some speculate that it might have been the Buddhist name of Ryo Hisanobu, but the NYTK says in the Chuyo paper that is Kiritsuke made, that it was added after at some later point. So we don't know if it was just another priest who had his name inscribed on the ten. I can go back quickly to this plate. Yeah, that's the plate, that's Chuyo. There's a large inscription here, as pointed out, it says Ikai, which would be a Buddhist name. But interestingly, the character for Kai is not the same as the Ryokai Kai. So that's why the NYTK said it was added later.
Can you tell the difference between a Mizukage that's retempered and one that's original?
Those who have to incorporate more details about the lack of nie, the condition of the tang, to see where the hamon starts. The Mizukage alone is not a good indicator because you see them on several sword makers. It was just their habit. And some, as we know later with Hisen Smith, some even actively removed the Mizukage by like heating them up on a copper block again, just to remove him. So Mizukage alone may be a red flag, but you have to dig deeper. Okay. Thank you very much.